Thank you. So, when I was 26 years old, I got a phone call. It was a woman that I didn't know, and she said to me, "I'm your mother." Now, I knew I was adopted, and I knew that I was a newborn in San Francisco and brought by a new family back to New York City, where I grew up and was raised, alongside a sister who was also adopted, not biologically related to me. And I knew a little bit bureaucratic information, like what time I was born and what hospital, from my birth certificate. But that was it. That was it. Obviously, I was curious, but that was it. So, 3 weeks later, I found myself on a plane going out to California to have lunch with my birth mother. It was very intense. It was very emotional. I was looking across the table, and I was having the experience of seeing my mother for the first time. And if that wasn't so intense, what was even more intense was through her eyes, I found myself seeing all my ancestors and my history and all their histories, and it was all pouring into me. It was an incredible experience. And then she said, "Do you want to meet your brother and two sisters from me tonight?" So we had dinner, and that was an amazing experience. But when I met my brother, who's 2 years younger than me and looks quite like me, sibling rivalry reared its head. And against my will, this thought popped into my head: damn, he's the good-looking one. Now, I had more revelations to come, because my birth mother said she was in touch with my birth father. Once a year, they would check in to see if the other had heard anything about me. So I was able to meet him the next day, in theory, at San Francisco airport, because he was flying back home to San Francisco, and I was leaving. Now, his flight was leaving, same airline, gate opposite my gate, but 2 hours after my non-changeable flight was supposed to leave. So I took my ticket up to the counter, and there was this really tough guy, gate agent, and I pleaded with him, and I said, "You're not going to believe this, but yesterday I met my birth mother and my brother and sisters, and my birth father is going to be on this plane in 2 hours. Can you please change my ticket?" And he said, "The stories that you people make up to try to change your tickets." And he said, "Let me have your ticket." So he took it, and then he changed it. And when he handed me the new ticket, he said, "I don't know what the hell is going on here, but yesterday, a young woman who I've never met called me up on the phone and said, 'I'm your daughter.'" So I met my father and my two brothers from him. Now, I've met my family many times since these two extra families, for many years now. And it's incredible the amount that we have in common. And every experience is really just almost shockingly eerie, for me at least, every time. It's a thrill. And I see all these things we have in common. But there's this odd thing that's occurred to me, and I've noticed. I am more like them than they are like each other. And I have a theory about that, which is that I didn't have the reference points to grow up with. I didn't have anyone to imitate, to rebel against, to differentiate from. So I'm about as much me as I could possibly be when I'm around them. Now, This brings up, of course, nature versus nurture, the big debate, but I have an opinion about that now, an educated opinion, because I've been living nature versus nurture all this time, and I can tell you DNA is really, really, really powerful. It's incredible. Now, the other thing that I noticed in common with them was careers. It was really odd that we, on both sides of the family tree, there's just a small number of careers that most of the people do. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, parents, siblings. Social entrepreneurship, political activism, sometimes journalism, arts and music, and poets. And sometimes mixed in all those things. And I am a combination of every single one of those things. When I ask what you do, I just find another side of myself, expressing myself. It hasn't failed yet whenever I hear of a new relative. The nature versus nurture thing could have been interesting with my adoptive parents, could have played out differently. But I was really lucky with my adoptive parents, particularly my mother, who made the decision to not put too many boundaries on me, to let me express myself freely. And I didn't realize at the time, but now I'm so grateful, because I realized that she made this decision of respect for me, a respect of the adopted child of hers, not the child of hers. And I'm so grateful for that. Now, when I met my birth mother, I found a kindred spirit. We are both total social entrepreneurs. And the time I met her, when I was 26, she had founded and was running a really innovative family homelessness-related organization. And I had founded and was running this innovative nonprofit that helped people find jobs in the nonprofit sector. And this has been a great source of contentment and advice for each other all these years, that we can talk shop together more than any of the other family members. There's one other remarkable, almost impossible story I'd like to close with. So when she found me because she hired a private detective. And the private detective called the office when she was out. So she came back to the office that fateful day of the "I'm your mother" phone call, and there were 2 messages that her assistant wrote down. The first message said, from the detective, "I found your son. His name is Jim Clark. You can reach him at 617-495-2178. The second message was, "They need more information on the job listing you posted today for your nonprofit. Call them back at 617-495-2178. That morning, my mother had called me to list a job with the job service for her nonprofit organization. Of all the days, of all the hours that we were potentially going to meet, that day was either fated, destined, or infinitesimally odds planned to happen then. Quite a day. But even more importantly, that was the day that I started to get the answer to the question that we all ask all the time. Who am I really? And I am so grateful to say, I know. Thank you.